Welcome to LMPD Partners with You. I'm Lower Merion Commissioner Scott Zelov, and joining me today is Police Superintendent Michael McGrath. Michael, welcome.
Hi, Scott.
I'm chair of the Police Committee, and today is a continuation in a series of programs in which Superintendent McGrath and I are going to talk about the services, the many services provided by the Lower Merion Police Department. Today, Mike, we're going to talk about the Traffic Safety Unit. Let's get started. What are the major duties of the Traffic Safety Unit in the LMPD?
Well, the Traffic Safety Unit covers a variety of functions for the police department and the community. They oversee all the traffic studies conducted in the township. They also oversee our school crossing guard program. They have a utility attendant that handles a lot of ancillary duties for the police department, and also the animal control duties throughout the township. Besides that, they also get involved in investigating all the serious crashes that occur within the township.
Mike, so the Traffic Safety Unit consists of a sergeant and then 2 officers.
It does.
And
yes.
so what are some of the specific responsibilities of those 2 traffic safety officers?
Well, as you know, for years, the whole issue of traffic and safety related to the movement of traffic through the township is a major concern of our residents. So
yes.
We get a lot of requests directly and also through the Board of Commissioners about different issues in different neighborhoods. So all those get funneled through the Traffic Safety Unit. So between the supervisor and the 2 officers, a major portion of their day is spent on conducting surveys and studies related to the requests from our community.
There's no question that commissioners receive more requests and questions and concerns expressed about the speed of traffic in our township and the volume of traffic in our township.
Absolutely.
And the Traffic Safety Unit there, is the group that responds to those specific requests for dealing with traffic speed, especially. What's the most, most requested traffic regulation study that is received by the TSU?
Over the years, it tends to be requests for stop signs.
Yep.
I think one of the misconceptions that is out there is that the stop sign is the answer for all issues. It will control speed, it'll lower the speeds, it'll reduce, perhaps dissuade some people from using certain streets if there's more stop signs, those types of things. The important thing to remember about putting in any traffic regulation, but in particular stop signs, is they have to follow the warrants put out by the state.
And what's a warrant? What does that mean?
A warrant is basically the rules behind what you're permitted to put out there. So PennDOT obviously puts out the rules and regulations for all roads throughout the Commonwealth. And you want to have uniform regulations, otherwise you go from community to community. You would have a patchwork of different rules and regulations for each community. And it would just turn into chaos as far as getting, going down the streets throughout the Commonwealth. So, that's the main focus. They go out and conduct studies. A lot of the studies, whether it's a stop sign or something to do with a traffic signal, is first to acquire data on speeds and volumes.
And so, Mike, then what happens? I mean, tell us a little more about the process, because not every request for a stop sign is approved, but a number of them are. So then what does the Traffic Safety Unit do after they gather the data?
Sure. And it's fairly uniform how the process goes through. So whether it's a stop sign, whether it's a speed limit or traffic signal, whatever the issue may be, and a lot more in the last several years has been about pedestrian safety.
Right.
We follow the same process. So we'll go out and we'll put down speed and volume counters. They're placed out on the, say, neighborhood street, if that's where the problem is. And they're typically put out for at least a 72-hour period. Middle of the week is the best time to do it, because you don't have sometimes the drop off of a Monday or a Friday or a holiday that might be associated with a weekend. So you're getting pretty much what's the normal traffic pattern for that neighborhood. We get the volume counts, know how many vehicles are using the highway, both directions. We're getting the speeds at the same time. So that begins the process of seeing, is this a situation where, let's use the example of the stop signs. Is there a lot of conflict between the through street and typically another minor street hitting that through street? That's one of the first criteria we'll take a look at. Once we acquire that data, we look at the crash history for the area. We want to see if there's any conflicts or anything that engineering will assist with reducing the number of crashes. If we have a particularly difficult area and there's a lot of crashes going on where we think there's an engineering issue, then we also coordinate through the Township Engineer's Office to bring them in to do a little bit higher level engineering review of the particular issue that we're looking at. Going from there, obviously, if there's a recommendation that we want to move forward and make a change to a regulation, that must go to the Board of Commissioners for approval, and then it's enacted in the Township Code.
Right. Anytime there is a new stop sign or stop signs at an intersection that requires a public meeting and approval by the Police Committee and then the Board of Commissioners.
Exactly. So there was 2 steps. Obviously, the Police Committee goes through the details of the concern and the recommendation, gives a preliminary approval, and then to the full board for a final decision whether or not to enact it.
Actually, every stop sign in the township is in the Township Code, as is every speed limit regulation on each and every road we have is in the Township Code, and changes to those speed limits have to be approved in a public meeting by the commissioners.
They do as well, so that they can be enforced properly.
So Mike, tell us a little bit more about what is PennDOT's role, and do they have to approve changes to speed limits, stop signs, installation of traffic signals, or changes to traffic signals?
Well, when you're talking about traffic signals, every place in the township where a resident sees it's regulated by a traffic signal, the PennDOT issues a permit, and this is statewide. So the permit is very technical. You have to show the timing of all the lights for the main street, for the cross street. If any municipality wants to change the timing, you have to do a permit request for that adjustment. So PennDOT gets involved at that point whenever we want to change either a traffic signal or a speed limit as well. As far as stop signs go, as long as we meet warrants, we don't go back to PennDOT and ask for permission. It's already covered in their code.
So Mike, as you just described, PennDOT has to approve even changes to traffic signals, adding a left turn, changing the timing on a signal.
Exactly.
And that's for every traffic signal, not only in Lower Merion Township, but throughout Pennsylvania. So what would happen if those changes were not approved or we didn't go through the process?
Well, if they weren't properly approved, the first thing is you can't enforce the regulation. Whether it's putting up a stop sign that doesn't meet the warrants, adjusting a speed limit that doesn't follow PennDOT regulations, or adjust the timing on a traffic signal light.
And so enforcement depends on approval, because otherwise those who receive citations could successfully challenge.
They can challenge
their citation if it is not properly approved by PennDOT.
That would absolutely be a defect to the citation. But what's more important too is you want to make sure the lights are operating in the proper timing so that people don't get unwarranted citations. You shouldn't have, for instance, a short yellow light where somebody is going to get a citation just because they thought they had a little bit more time to make it through the intersection. So you want to make sure through proper maintenance and care of the intersections that we follow the permit times that are set for those, because they're all set by engineering standards. It's just not a haphazard decision how much time you put on these lights.
Mike, we've made some recent changes at some intersections to make it easier and, most importantly, safer for pedestrians.
Yes.
And it's actually what I think of as some innovative changes, because we have a lot of traffic that has to move through the township, but we want a community that is walkable and safe for pedestrians, particularly near schools and business districts and other institutions. And so what is it that we've done on some of those traffic signals?
Well, the key word you use there is safe. We want to make sure safety is the central focus of whatever change we have to the regulations. So some of the things we're able to do, and it depends on the technology within the actual mechanisms at each intersection and the control boxes. So, we're an older township. It's a big area we cover. Some of the different mechanisms are older and they have to be upgraded. Some are more modern. Depends on the time they were installed. But what we've done is put in advanced lights, red lights, where basically it gives the opportunity for pedestrian to enter the crosswalk and start to get across the street before the light turns green to permit traffic to enter that intersection.
Right, and sometimes that signal allowing the pedestrian to cross is as short as 5 seconds.
It can
But
be.
that can make an enormous difference for allowing pedestrians to cross an intersection before any traffic moves. And I know that the police have installed that at a few intersections.
And we've received a lot of positive comments, both from pedestrians and a lot of the shop owners and business people in the commercial areas about those changes.
And we've had for some time a four-way stop in my part of the township in Bryn Mawr, at Bryn Mawr Avenue and Lancaster Avenue, where the signal will stop in all four directions, so a car won't be turning left to put a pedestrian at risk, because that's one of the busier intersections in the township for pedestrians crossing.
It is probably one of the most highest volume of pedestrian cross traffic. So that's very much like you would see an intersection in inner cities, and it's appropriate for that location. Plus, it also has the type of control boxes that can handle that type of mechanism to control the intersection.
Thanks very much, Mike. We've covered a lot, but we have some more things to talk about with regard to the Police Department's Traffic Safety Unit. So after a break, we'll be back. I'm Lower Merion Commissioner Scott Zelov, Chair of the Police Committee, and I'm here with Lower Merion Police Superintendent Michael McGrath. You're watching LMPD Partners with You. We'll be right back. Welcome to LMPD, Partners with You. I'm Lower Merion Commissioner Scott Zelov. I'm Chair of the Police Committee for the Board of Commissioners. With me today is Lower Merion Police Superintendent Michael McGrath, and we've been talking about a very important function of the Police Department, the Traffic Safety Unit. Mike, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Scott.
As you and I discussed earlier, traffic speed is probably the biggest category of complaint that all the commissioners receive. Traffic speed is an ongoing issue and a constant challenge for our township, for our police department. And unfortunately, we know who is going too fast, and it's us.
Yes.
It's very often the people who live in our community and the residents in our many neighborhoods. We've been talking about the things that the Traffic Safety Unit does. Tell us, why don't we start this segment with, what are the things that the Traffic Safety Unit can do in order to try and reduce traffic speed? What measures can be taken?
Sure. One of the things, and I think a lot of our residents have encountered them, are speed alert displays that are put around the township at different locations. We have two different types. One of the older styles is the trailer version, where there's a trailer and a speed display put up on the side of the road. And now we have a more modern ones, which are pole-mounted speed displays. And what they do is, as somebody's driving down the street, there's a radar unit within the display unit, and it records your speed and flashes back the speed to the approaching driver. It's an educational piece. A lot of times we find that people really don't realize what speed they're going when they're going down the roadways. So by mounting these type of devices at different locations around the township, we're bringing, raising awareness to the speeds people are driving.
And that awareness does help slow down traffic speed.
It does. You actually see the brake lights go on and people slowing down when they approach these devices. We, some years ago, did a study in regard to the effectiveness of the speed alert displays. And what we did was put down the traffic counters and speed timers to see, prior to putting out the speed alert displays, seeing what the average speed was on the roadway. We then deployed the speed alert displays, went back several weeks later, and then measured the speeds on the roadway, and we saw a decrease in the overall speed after the use of those displays.
Mike, we've been acquiring more of the pole-mounted speed indicators, and they're smaller, and they're mounted on utility poles. And along with the speed display trailers, they get moved around. So how long what's the average time that a speed indicator will stay in a given location before it gets moved to another location in our township?
Typically the minimum is a week. Sometimes it can be longer based on the issue in the neighborhood or the requests for different areas where people observe problems. That's one of the things we do is we want feedback from our community.
Right.
And we place these things in areas where people notice issues related to speed. So when we get these, we keep a track of the requests, where the problem areas are, and then move these devices around based on those observed problems.
And the feedback to the police department comes from residents contacting the police department directly, or residents contacting their commissioner, and the commissioners will contact the traffic safety unit.
They contact our communications center, our traffic safety unit directly. As you know, commissioners get many calls and emails.
We do.
And directly I get them as well.
Mike, let's talk about citations. There's a perception around, not only in this community, but all over, that police issue citations, particularly for speeding, in order to generate revenue.
Sure.
Maybe that goes on in other places, but let's talk about Lower Merion.
Yeah, and it is a misperception. It's a fairly hefty number at the bottom of that citation, and it's a lot of different categories. But most of the revenue, or the cost of a citation, goes back to the state. A portion goes for the court system. A portion goes for the insurance fund to pay off some insurance-related issues. So a very small portion of that overall, whatever the final number is for the fine, actually goes back to the municipality who issues that citation. So we've done actually studies to determine whether or not you could add more police officers to the department, because we have so many requests for speed enforcement and traffic-related enforcement, whether or not you could actually offset the costs of hiring more police by the citations that might come out of their work. And you can't do that. And so it is not revenue enhancement. And what it really is when those people don't voluntarily want to follow the regulations, whether it's speed or stop sign, whatever the case may be, is we have to do enforcement. And that is to, again, raise awareness and basically tell the people who are violating the law, this is the result.
So much in traffic safety is governed by PennDOT, as we spoke about in the first segment, including the court system, not PennDOT, but that means at the state level. So, and also at the state level is the court system, because we have the district justices where someone can go to contest a citation. But that's a system that is a state-run system, even though they are locally elected district justices. And so, as you say, any payments for citations mostly go to fund that system and go to PennDOT. So it's not a revenue generator for Lower Merion Township or really any municipality in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's the same ratio across the board. No community gets any different amounts from any citations issued. So it would be the same across the board around the Commonwealth.
A driver going 26 miles an hour on a residential street that's posted for 25, will they get a citation?
They won't get stopped. No, we don't stop people for going a few miles over the speed limit. You're actually not permitted to by Pennsylvania state law. So no, that does not occur. Excuse me. But what is interesting, that is not the case in all states. So while it might apply in Pennsylvania, be careful when you're driving some other parts of the country.
And so what is the criteria for issuing a speed, going in speed of excess of the posted limit in Pennsylvania?
To get a citation, you have to be traveling 10 miles per hour above the posted speed limit.
And that has to do, and so that has how do we determine the level of speed limit that we'll post on a given road? How do we do that?
Again, we go back. Sure. Again, we go back to PennDOT regulations. You just can't. Each community just can't pick and choose what speeds they decide to post on the side of the highway. So it gets into the width of the roadway, engineering, whether the road is straight, whether or not there's hills or curves associated with it, what's the volume on the highway. But one of the main factors that you utilize to determine the appropriate speed for any road, whether it be a residential street, whether take your Lancaster Avenue or Montgomery Avenue, our major thoroughfares, is what's called the 85th percentile rule. And that's from engineering studies over decades, which basically says that the speed of 85% of the people on the highway, when you measure that, that's the appropriate speed for that highway. People will normally drive at a safe speed for themselves and everybody else around them, and that 85th percentile tells you within 5 miles per hour what you should post that speed limit at.
Previously, incidents were referred to as accidents.
Yes.
Today, the police department refers to them as crashes. Words matter. Why has the police department started to use a different word to describe vehicle collisions?
Yes, some years ago, and it started actually at the state level, and this is kind of across the board around the country as well. The actual report was changed to call a crash report. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Many so-called traffic accidents really aren't accidents. The term accident means, you had no control over it. If you really break down what caused the collision, it was a distracted driver, somebody speeding, somebody just flagrantly violating the regulation that's there. So it was preventable. If it's preventable, it's not an accident.
And as drivers learn more about what causes accidents, and police do more to inform drivers about what causes accidents, what is the trend in our township in terms of the number of crashes?
Well, fortunately, we've seen the number of collisions go down over the years. Probably some 15 years ago, we made it a goal in the Operations Division of the Police Department. I was in charge of operations at the time, to really focus on improving both pedestrian and traffic safety on all our roadways. So we focus on improving our traffic studies, trying to improve the intersections around the township. And of course, that takes the backing from the Board of Commissioners, approving funding to upgrade our different intersections. Sometimes there's some construction costs involved in re-engineering an intersection. We also increase the amount of enforcement around the area and awareness, putting out those speed alert trailers, for instance. So we've seen a steady decline, not as much as we like, but it's going in the right directions. It's going down the number of total collisions around the township.
And certainly we want to see that trend continue. And that's why the work of the Traffic Safety Unit and all of the police department on enforcement and on drivers being responsible as they drive through their neighborhoods and this community, along with improving intersections, sight lines, traffic signal timing, as well as making it safer for pedestrians, is so important for the quality of life in Lower Merion Township. I may have summed up the mission of the Traffic Safety Unit, Mike, but would you like to do so as we close this segment?
I think you really did, and it really is all those things wrapped together. It has to do with proper engineering. It has to do with people being aware of their surroundings, operating their vehicles properly. And one of the key things I think we need to really add with this day and age, put the cell phone down. You know, we see too many people on the highway driving around, texting, and using the cell phone inappropriately. If you want to improve safety, that needs to be put in your pocket.
My 16-year-old daughter has her permit. She's trying to get her license. And the first thing we said to her is, when you get in the car, put your cell phone in the glove compartment.
That's excellent advice.
Mike, that's what every driver, whether they're 16 or 56, should be doing.
Absolutely agree.
Thank you, Mike. You've been watching LMPD Partners with You. I'm Lower Merion Commissioner Scott Zelov, and I'm chair of the Police Committee. I've been with Lower Merion Police Superintendent Mike McGrath, and we've been talking about the enormously important issue of traffic safety and the Traffic Safety Unit in the Lower Merion Police Department. Thanks for watching. This is LMPD Partners with You.